Ansible, Puppet, or Chef. You've heard the names, right? If you're in tech, they're everywhere. But man, picking one can feel like a huge, irreversible decision. So which one is actually right for your team, for your projects? In this explainer, we're going to break down these three titans of IT automation so you can stop guessing and finally make a real strategic choice. All right, so here's the game plan. First, we're going to talk about the problem that even created the need for these tools. You got to know the why. Then we'll do a deep dive into Ansible, then Puppet, and then Chef, one by one. And finally, we'll put it all together, compare them side by side, and give you a framework to make that strategic choice. Let's get into it. So, to really get why these tools are such a big deal, we got to take a little trip back in time. Before tools like these existed, the world of server management, well, it was a totally different beast. It was a world of manual work, and honestly, it was pretty much pure chaos. And at the heart of all this chaos was this one big bad villain called configuration drift. This is what happens when servers that are supposed to be perfect clones of each other slowly change. A manual patch here, a quick config tweak there, and suddenly nothing is standard anymore. This drift, it's basically a ticking time bomb for reliability and a massive, massive security risk. I mean, just picture it for a second. Manually setting up one server, then another, then another. It was incredibly slow, super inefficient, and every single command you typed was another chance to make a mistake. As infrastructure started getting bigger and bigger, this way of doing things just broke. It couldn't keep up. Something had to give. And so the industry responded. In 2005, Puppet shows up and introduces this game-changing idea of a desired state. A few years later, Chef comes along, really championing this developer-first idea of infrastructure as code. And then, in 2012, Ansible arrives on the scene, basically designed from the ground up to be a direct answer to the complexities of the tools that came before it. Okay, let's start with that disruptor, Ansible. When it came into the picture, it had one goal and one goal only, to make automation radically simple. And you really can't say it any better than its creator, DeHaan. His whole vision was radical simplicity. This wasn't about cramming in more features, no. It was about tearing down the barriers, about removing all the friction that made other automation tools feel so heavy. So how in the world does Ansible pull this off? It all comes down to one word, agentless. See, with Puppet and Chef, you have to install a piece of software, an agent, on every single server you manage. Ansible, it just skips that whole step. It uses the SSH connection you already have, pushes out its instructions, and gets out. There's no footprint, no extra software to manage. That is a total game changer. So, if you're going to remember three things about Ansible, let it be these. 1. It's agentless and simple. The learning curve is super low because it just uses YAML, which is easy for humans to read. 2. Its push model means you have total control. You tell it when to run, and it runs. And 3, making sure your scripts run the same way every time, what we call idempotency. That's on you. It's a discipline you have to practice. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the OG of this whole space, Puppet. You know, if Ansible is all about speed and quick tasks, Puppet is about long-term stability. It's built to be a powerful, relentless enforcer of the state of your systems. This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of Puppet's philosophy. With Puppet, you don't write a script telling it how to install a server step by step. No, you just declare what the final system should look like. I want this package installed, this service running, and then Puppet's engine figures out all the complex, messy details to make it happen. That's the desired state model it invented. And here's how it enforces that state. Remember that agent we talked about? Well, in Puppet's world, that little agent is always on duty. By default, every 30 minutes, it calls home to the main Puppet server, pulls down the latest roles, and automatically fixes anything on the machine that doesn't match. It is a relentless guardian against configuration drift. So, to wrap up Puppet in a nutshell, its declarative model is an absolute beast for compliance and security. Its agent-based architecture is rock solid for managing thousands and thousands of machines. And it's not standing still. With a tool called Puppet Bolts, it now has an agentless option too, for those quick ad hoc tasks. And that brings us to our third and final contender, Chef. So if Ansible is for simplicity and Puppet is for enforcement, then Chef is the powerful, flexible toolkit built for developers who want to treat their infrastructure exactly like they treat their software, as code. This quote just hits the nail on the head. Look, Chef has a reputation for being complex, and that's fair. But you have to understand, that complexity is a feature, not a bug. It's what makes Chef an absolutely unrivaled tool when you're dealing with really intricate, really complex, mission-critical systems. So what's Chef's secret weapon? It's all in the language. It uses what's called a domain-specific language, or DSL, that's built on top of the full Ruby programming language. This means you can use real programming logic. We're talking loops, if-then statements, variables, right inside your configuration files. This unlocks a level of power and flexibility that simpler tools just can't touch. So, the key takeaways on Chef are these. First, it's code-centric. That Ruby DSL gives technical teams just unmatched control. Second, it's grown into a whole DevSecOps platform with tools for security and compliance baked right in. And third, it's incredibly scalable. But that power comes with a price, a pretty complex setup, and a much steeper learning curve. Okay, we've met the players, we've seen their philosophies, their strengths, their weaknesses. Now for the main event, making the strategic choice. And let's be clear, the goal here isn't to find the single best tool. It's about finding the best tool for you, for your team, and for your specific challenges. So when you put them all side by side, what does it really look like? Let's break it down feature by feature. Okay, just look at this. You can see the big divides right away. Architecture, Ansible is the odd one out, the only agentless tool. That directly connects to the learning curve, where Ansible's simple YAML is just way easier to pick up than the powerful but complex Ruby DSLs that Puppet and Chef use. Understanding these fundamental trade-offs, that's the key to your decision. So here's your decision framework. It really just boils down to this. You choose Ansible when you need simplicity, speed, and you're doing lots of ad hoc tasks. You choose Puppet when your primary concern is continuous compliance, security, and long-term stability across a huge fleet. And you choose Chef when you need maximum control, when your environment is incredibly complex, and when you're all in on DevSecOps. Because at the end of the day, these tools aren't really about managing servers. They're about freeing up people. They take care of the boring, repetitive, error-prone stuff so that your teams can focus on what really matters, building, creating, and innovating. So the final question isn't just which tool you're going to pick. It's once your infrastructure is finally automated, what amazing thing are you going to build next?